So I'm Dane Rose, and I just finished watching a nice documentary about magicians on Netflix. However, what stood out to me watching it was something that I've been observing a lot in America. And the first thing is that interacting and driving around in American culture, it seems like what we've created at this stage very unnecessarily in the culture is a primary conduit of flow between human beings involving shopping and consumption. So everywhere I go, there are ever competing opportunities to spend money with the underlying message that what success is getting more people to spend money with you, and that relationships are smart, are shrewd, are important as a way of networking and spending money. Now, this makes a little bit of sense from a survival perspective, like if we really were in a survival mentality, that perhaps getting more money from people would actually be important. However, at the same time, there's an incredible poverty and a huge missed opportunity to interact with a wide number of people for no other reason than to love and to be loved, to enjoy, to celebrate and be celebrated. What I saw in the Magician documentary was a little bit of a biopic. And one of the themes that came through all of the different magicians, and they were wonderful magicians, was, like one person got married and then got divorced during the documentary. And it's like, well, at least I've got my magic. And another person, his girlfriend cheated with him and his best friend, but at least I've always got magic. And one of the things that, and this, by the way, is a fine Moscato wine with a little bit of peach, essence of peach and Moscato. So we'll enjoy this together. Usually I like to just spit it out and feel the refreshing taste, but I don't have a spitter handy, so we'll just sip it. One of the things that I noticed in my own relationship with trauma and PTSD was that it is our nature to bond deeply with something, and truly it's our nature to bond deeply with others. However, in a dissociated culture, where in my case it was very difficult to bond with either of my two parents emotionally, it's emotional bonding that is at the core of who we are as human beings for millions of years, is that I bonded tightly to things early on rather than to people, because the people were too volatile, they were too unattuned and unstable. And it's really, I think, very true that to the degree that we obsess about money and things and have that as our primary marriage to our career, marriage to the acquisition of things, that we do not bond deeply and fully to one another. And a lot of that is the instability. And it's a little bit of a ripple effect, because when other people are bonding to things, their goals, their career path, their aspiration, what it means is that when there's a tension between our relationship and the goals, the aspiration, the money, the things, they will bond to the thing rather than to the relationship. And what this means is that the relationship is not stable. And as an unstable variable, it's not safe to be the constant. So when the people around us bond to things and to money, if we need stability, we need to look for something stable. And it's not going to be the people who will release, change, and betray us for a goal. It's going to be things. And so this is how the virus of the love of money and things has separated us as a culture. It's incredibly lonely to watch these essentially very scared little children who could not bond to any one person, bonding to a thing as an indirect way to have some connection with people. But there's no single one stable person who knows us, who loves us as they know us, and who chooses and has the instinct to bond to us above something else. Many of us bond to addictions. TV can be adrenaline. And we can know when someone's bonding to an addiction, an adrenaline, an aspiration, a fantasy, instead of a person, when, for example, if someone has an adrenaline addiction, they're going to get a rush from newness. So you come along and you're new, and they bond to you as long as you're new, because there's fear, which is adrenaline. There's unknown, which is adrenaline. There's the excitement of the new, which is adrenaline. And this will pass, in a day, in a couple of days, in a couple of months. And if the addiction and the bond is to the adrenaline rather than to a person or the relationship, then the new is going to become more and more exciting. And so you'll have, a percentage of the population addicted to adrenaline and loyal to their addiction, who is just going to move within the population at whatever level newness is offered, newness and excitement. But it's not intimacy, and it's certainly not love to bond and then break the bond for the new adrenaline hit. And so there's this real crisis within the culture on how to break the addiction and to break the stability to something that's stable. Because we've all, to one degree or another in a Western culture, experienced instability and volatility in relationship, and to the degree that that's been too terrifying, substituted the bond with people, with a person, for a bond with other things, with a career. Careers are a lot more stable in a general sense than a given person, within a culture where everyone is bonding to a career more than one another. Because if someone is bonded to a career and you bond to them, and you were a career step up in some way, and now you're in the way of the career, well, now they leave you and they stay bonded to the career. And you've lost your stability. And so when we do that with 3 or 4 people who are bonded to their career, what ends up happening is they keep their stability. We get dissociated and disoriented because we've lost a primal bond. And we, quote, learn, we, quote, smarten up, we, quote, mature. What we really do is we get hurt and we say, okay, I'm going to bond with a career too. And now we both bond with a career and relationships come and go. The stability stays the same. But in many cases, the real magic, the real richness is lost, because for many of us, regardless of the career, there just isn't the substance, the joy, the beauty that there could be in a relationship. And what I want to just suggest as I wrap up this topic is that finding one other person who has the courage, the vulnerability, and the beauty to pull their security and their stability away from a thing, away from money, away from an abstract concept like a career, and to pivot towards one another and find intimacy. It's a really big step. And so in the next video, that's one of the things I'm going to explore, is how do we create a stable and safe enough intimacy where we can rest that core bond of certainty on a person and partner together, rather than one person doing that and getting stung, or neither person doing that and filling the emptiness that is left by keeping busy. How do we form really close relationships? So that'll be the topic in the next video. So in this video, I want to explore the technology of forming a bond that is so stable and clear with another person that it can kindly and lovingly become a primary bond. Because going back to what I spoke about in the last video, there's a certain chemical in our brain that originally and naturally is part of our herd bonding need. The fact that we are social animals, social human beings who fundamentally need one another to survive, that seeks, as it grows up and matures, to bond deeply, originally with our parents, and then to seek one or more close bonds with other human beings. And that this has been culturally shifted away to bond to careers, money, power, image, and things. And that while the stability of those money, career, and things is essential, we need certainty and stability in some areas. And so there is often met when we bond to a thing, an image, a career, we're often much more successful in a culture that is organized around things, money, and career. We're often successful at having certainty around it, but it's not as satisfying as the certainty of the original bond, the sacred bond with people. And you absolutely need to start with two people who are open and interested in bonding deeply with one another. Now, very few Western relationships have as a primary bond two people committed to putting their hearts first, their hearts and their partner's hearts first. There's a very basic reason for this, and it's called failure. The success rate of two people bonding primarily to one another is very low. It's somewhere in the kind of 1 to 5% range. Now, this bond is, when you put your primary bond on anything, there's a strong need for certainty in that bond. Now, when you've had even 60%, let alone 85, 95% of the bonds you've tried to form with people kind of collapse. It's like you put this deep trust bond, you're leaning in, and they're not there, and you just fall. It's horrendous. And so what most people do is they say, okay, what did that person leave me for? Oh, they left me for a raise, or they left me for looking good, or they left me for a TV show, or they left me for a dog. What was it? I'm going to get one of those that's more certain than people. And it's not, it's okay. But the true magic is in bonding with one or more deep human beings. So how do we do it? Well, there's a couple of so in the West, the primary challenge is finding the person whose mind wants to bond deeply with one other human being. The next problem becomes, in a culture that's organized around flows of money as opposed to flows of love and well-being, sustaining that. So this is kind of the balance point. So I want to talk about that in my own life and the challenge. So in my experience in America, in the Bay Area in America, I need to go through a lot of people before I find someone who's coming in who wants a primary relationship, wants an enduring relationship, knows what it is to put it first. And I'm not saying not sleeping around. I'm saying first before things, before money, before a career. So that to the extent that there's money, things, and career, they are to support a bond. And to the extent that those things don't support the bond, those are let go. That's what I'm talking about. So finding this is a challenge. And I've had a number of, to varying degrees, successful relationships in the United States. And I find it typically easier to engage in another culture where relationships are more primary. For example, in Thailand, families and partnership comes first, and a partner becomes your family, and so family comes first. So it's roughly 8 times easier in cultures with a very strong family orientation to do this. And so if I don't have the energy to kind of sift through roughly 250 Westerners to find, see, because it's, you know, if there's 1 to 5% of people that are oriented in that direction, that's oriented into that direction with someone compatible. So then, you know, you've got to go through, so, you know, let's say you have 300 people, and out of that there's 15 that are oriented in that direction. Then are any of those 15 compatible with you? And then there's various things, like there's ageism, there's racism, there's you know, physical attractiveness, and then there's logistics and flow. So it's quite challenging. So I want to be candid about the challenge. That's for me, I would say, the biggest challenge in the West. So, you know, at this point, my partner is Filipina, and culturally, the depth that we both share and want is supported in Philippine culture. And so that's, you know, that goes up, you know, 8 times. So in a group of Filipinas, there might be 30 out of 100, or 40, you know, 30, 40 out of 100 that really have that orientation. Sometimes more, it depends on, you know, the group of people, but it's roughly 8 times easier in family-oriented culture. Then there's still the issue of, are you compatible? As you find people who are oriented in this direction, who are able, willing, ready, and looking for a partner to put first, how do you go about it? So I want to talk about the technology. And there's 2 levels of technology, but the first one is partnering. And in partnering technology, it begins with this kind of leaning towards, and the first step is gathering data. So what makes you feel pain? You know, if you look through all your past relationships, what's everything that makes you feel pain? Not only makes you feel pain, but how much pain? So make a list, you know, and I really encourage you sitting down to, you know, maybe even pause the video right now and make a list of the behavior in a partner that causes you pain, and how much pain, and be specific. So when I'm talking and someone says, gotta go, and turns on their favorite TV program, that causes me pain, you know, 4 out of 10. If I want to talk and someone says, not now, and is focused on their video game or whatever, that causes me 7 out of 10. If someone is late for a date, that causes me pain, 3 out of 10. You know, pain, anger, shame, frustration, craziness, hurt, negative impact. Rate it and be specific. Gather this data. 2, what makes me feel deeply loved? When someone surprises me with flowers and a card. When someone remembers an anniversary. Which anniversaries? For example, my partner celebrates our monthsary, the day that we met every month. So this is our 3rd monthsary. This is our 6th monthsary. So she loves the monthsaries. And so, you know, when someone remembers this anniversary, when someone gives me this kind of gift meeting these criteria. For example, maybe getting a gift with a card that isn't recycled paper feels unloving because you realize they don't see that you care about the environment. Maybe for someone else it's completely oblivious. So be specific. What makes me feel loved? And again, pause. Develop this list. You want to have at least 30 specific actions, and then 1 to 10. How loved do you feel when someone you care about does these things? What causes you negative impact? What makes you feel loved? Those are 2 really important variables and things to know. 3, and that when we're moving towards partnership here, but to partner, you have to partner with something. And you have to be something specific, not vague. It's absolutely useless to say, I don't like people hurting me and disrespecting me, and I like people being nice and kind. Absolutely useless. Who doesn't? The question is, what causes you pain and to what degree? What makes you feel loved and to what degree? 3rd, what is the culture that draws out the best in you? Who are you at your best? Who do you want to be? What is your core self? And this requires a little bit of cultural deprogramming, because if you look on TV, maybe being witty and sarcastic and funny and laughing is kind of you admire because that seems to be a popular person. But there may not be a lot of depth below that. You know, that person may not be feeling true joy, but rather a satisfaction in knowing that they're playing the role that is popular. And there's a big difference between that, because true joy is coming from within. Like, I'm more me when I'm this way. For example, in my partner, giving, you know, that I never see her so kind of filled with anticipation and excitement and joy and enthusiasm coming from within as she's prepared a gift, often a card. And, you know, these will be magical cards where, you know, there's glitter and hearts and, you know, interesting statues and bits of paper and, you know, montages, and you open up and flowers open up 3-dimensional, and notes and little secret pockets. And when she prepares one of those gifts for me and she's getting ready to show, I never see so much joy and excitement just radiating off of her. And so she's giving something that sadly in Western culture would be patronized a lot of the time. I mean, this is how sick we are in many ways, that it'd be patronized, but she's giving from within. So giving a card helps her access when she creates the whole thing herself. She might spend, you know, anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours preparing and creating this whole collage of texture and image and words and secrets and surprises. And so when she's giving, her joy comes out. And you need to know what brings your joy out, what kind of culture. And clarify that. You know, what's a great block of time? What environment do you want to be doing? What activities do you like to do? How do you want to engage? How much do you want to touch? How much do you want to talk? How much do you want to be on the phone? How much do you want to text? What kinds of things do you want to say and create? And you want to design a culture that is not the culture, that is not popular culture, but is authentic culture that's coming out of you. You've got to be willing to, since so few people have that within this culture, a culture around money and things and all that, you've got to be willing and brave enough to start imagining and experimenting with what brings out the culture in you. What culture brings out the best in you? And I'll give you an example. I hate texts. I mean, it's fine for logistics, like can you meet me at 6 p.m. or whatever, but I like 4 hour to 7 hour, blocks of time, so that you can enter a timeless space and lose the sense of time. I love that. I like to cook and prepare special food for people I care about and that reflects who they are. I like help with the dishes so that I don't feel tired and taxed because I did that. I love to receive yellow daffodils as a gift. I like to feel in various ways that someone has their full attention on us. I like to have deep conversations. I like to have meta conversations. Like, how does your body feel when we're talking about this? That's a meta conversation, a conversation about the conversation. Does your joy go up or down as we go in this direction? Like when I mentioned, how about going to a movie? Did your joy go up? Or was it like, gosh, I don't want to have a discussion about movies. So so these are conversations about conversations. So I love to have meta conversations. And then meta conversations about the meta conversations, which is, do you know why? Well, I used to have these endless debates about movies with my boyfriend, and it would always end the same way. We'd go to his movie and it just felt completely pointless, and it felt like the only reason we had the conversation was so that he could pretend that it was our movie, but it was going to be his movie anyway. But rather than getting the credit that I'm always giving him the joy of his movie, he didn't want to give me that credit because he didn't want to feel like a selfish person. So he would first ask me, then shoot down every movie I put out, and then we'd go to his movie. And so you've just asked of a movie, and I don't want to go through that whole thing. It just made me feel small. So the smallness is around being manipulated into giving a gift by someone who doesn't want to thank you for your gift and own that they're receiving a gift from you, the gift of you going and doing what they'd love to do because you want to make them happy, because they didn't want to look selfish. So they did this whole roundabout manipulation thing. So first they ask you about it, and then you end up doing it, and then they don't thank you because they want you to go saying it's our choice, but it never really is. And so I just hate that. Thank you. That's actually a great insight. I do a little bit of that too. And now I understand you more, and now I understand giving more and flowing more. So I love meta conversations. Conversations about conversations and conversations about the conversations about the conversations. It's a way to bring in deep intimacy. You kind of think of it as coding. What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And how did that come about? And why did that come about? And what are the emotions about that? And what are the thoughts about that? And what are the beliefs origins and what are the feelings and how the body feel and then what are the emotions about that. And you just really start to see the whole build-up of who a person is and why. And when you wake up in the midst of a meta conversation, and you realize, you know, we're 8 meta conversations deep, and we see the spirit of the person seeking to find its way through all these codes, and the codes become conscious, and then there's just the presence of another human being. These are my meta conversations and all my layers of code. These are your layers of code. And this is who we are. This is what's trying to come out. Like at the core of every human being is joy, love, bonding, enthusiasm, curiosity, wonder, beauty, generosity. Like these magical energies are at the core of who we are. And then we have all these layers of code, and then layers of counteractive code that block some of that, and then layers of code like this. And then this, you know, this essence of who we are has to twist through all these layers of code and come up. And often we you know, the other person, we can't see anything real through all that code. But when you unravel the code and you see these 2 essences, these 2 spirits in human beings, seeking to love and be loved through all these often mismatching bits of code, and you can share that. And the thing that I love to do with all of that is to say, you know, I can't change all your code, and you can't change your code, but we can see it, and we can see how they're bumping up and kind of counteracting one another. And we can laugh about it. We can bring joy into the space. We can see this is who you are. This is who you really are. And here's the code. Then we can partner. So for example, seeing the absolute joy that Jenilyn has preparing a gift, I ask her to give me gifts. The gifts are beautiful. Truly, you know, they're 7, 8, 9, 10s to receive. But the kind of 11 out of 10 pleasure that I get is the joy of seeing another human spirit enthusiastically, celebratingly throwing herself in to an action that is a very direct way for her love and joy to just flow towards me. And she's preparing it, and she can't wait to see, what did I like this? Did I like that? What did I love the most? And so it's a ritual of receiving that's also giving, because I'm giving her a doorway into herself. And one of the things that I also, you know, knowing that other bits of her code that she's gotten a lot of attack, you know, from ignorant and abusive people that block her spirit, helping her see you're not that criticism that's been dumped on you. This is who you are. This joy of giving, this is who you are. And her realizing, yes, you know, when I have a chance, I love to give. I love to, you know, create and bring joy. And when we see that and consciously create a culture together where who we truly are is the most important thing, this is the culture. So you want to know your culture. What's your culture that lets you be the most happy, amazed, excited, joyful, passionate, you know, focused, whatever feels like that's me. That's me. I can see me in this. That's what you want to create. You want to know the recipe. Now, just these 3 things, pain, what makes me feel loved, and the cultural recipe that brings out the best in me. then you also want the other thing. What is the culture that brings out the worst in me? So I go into a bar, it's immediately too noisy. Then there's movement here and there and I can't focus. I get irritated. I don't want to be there. Then I don't want to tell anyone what I'm feeling there because it's horrible. It's like, so then I don't want anyone to ask what I'm feeling. So I don't want to be there. Then I don't want people to talk to me. Then I feel guilty and there's something wrong with me. And by the end of the evening, I'm just in hell. And I'm pretty hellish company. So bravo, we've had a hellish evening with hellish company and I don't like myself. And this is what does it. You want to know what that is so that you can avoid it. So now you've got data. And now you've got that rare person who's wanting to lean in. So you've got to teach them. How do they? You've got to, now that you know this, you've got to unwrap this person. What makes you feel totally loved? What could I do right now that would make you feel totally and completely loved? What hurts you? I don't know, nothing hurts me. Well, have you ever been hurt before? I don't want to think about it. Well, let's think about it. Because did you know they tend to repeat themselves if they're avoided? Well, I think I'm over it now. Well, how about telling me the 10 times you were hurt the most in your life and what hurt you in detail? Yeah, I don't want to do it. Okay, well, see you around, because you're not willing to write, you're not willing to partner, because what I want you to see is that until you see yourself and your partner sees you in these areas, and they see themselves and you see them, you cannot partner. What are you doing normally? You're imagining, you're projecting what that person wants based on a bunch of stereotypes and past experiences. And then if you want to please them, you're doing what would please them if that were true. And a good percentage of the time it's not. So you're not partnering, you're projecting and then manipulating. And occasionally it works out, but it's not truly partnering. So this is the technology where two people who are able, ready, and willing to come together can learn the data that is necessary. It's a prerequisite to real and effective partnership. You've got to communicate it. One of the tools you can do that with is writing this down. You can call it a user's manual, and you can share this and do, a great thing, a way that I do this is in back and forth. I say, let's have a conversation for the next hour on a first date about what hurt you and why. If you want to keep it lighter, you can start on the positive. Let's take turns sharing something that we could do right now that would make you feel 100% loved. Well, I don't know. Well, do you like gifts? So what would be the gift that would make you feel most loved right now? Great, thank you. Here's a gift here's something that would make me feel totally loved. And why? Now your turn. You can go back and forth till you build this up together so it's not overwhelming. Next date, what hurts you and why? Okay, I had no idea. I'll make a point. I do that sometimes, that thing that hurts you. And I don't do it to hurt you. That's just my temperament. But I'm gonna be ratcheting that down consciously in my personality because I care about you. And I want you to know this is not about you, but I'm gonna be changing it to some degree because of you, or this thing I can't change, but I wanna change this other thing that I can. So this is the process of consciously partnering to build a sustainable relationship, because what you're trying to do is really significant. In order to create a sustainable bond that is the primary attachment and the primary source of certainty in your life, you've got to achieve a significant goal. It's a very, very, very important goal, and it takes conscious craftsmanship. And the goal is this: that you can both honestly say that being together in the way that you are together brings both of you more well-being, consciously and clearly, than being alone or with any other person you can be with. And when both people can honestly say this day by day, you've got a sustainable relationship. In the next video, I want to talk a little bit about how to sustain some of the practices and cultures that when you reach this point, you can sustain it and keep a relationship rich. Okay, so you've got a great relationship. You're leaning in. They're your primary source of certainty and well-being. How do you keep it that way? It's one of the most important questions ever. And the most important part is daily questions. Number one, is there anywhere I'd rather be than here? Ask yourself. Number two, is there anyone I'd like to be with other than my partner today? Ask yourself and answer. Number three, is there anything I would like to change to reduce a pain that my partner is causing or indirectly causing me? Ask and answer. 4, is there anything that could change that would increase the value of this relationship for me today? And 5, how, in terms of my ideal and what brings out the best in me, is this relationship bringing out the best in me? And what's bringing out the goodness that is there, and what can we do more of? That's for yourself, and the same is true on the other side. So I ask myself this and kind of keep track, and then I want to be very candid that it's much harder to find, like I have never found a woman in thousands of conversations that takes the initiative to consciously and directly follow this train of thought. It's a very effective train of thought, in that almost all of the most magical and rich sustaining relationships I've had have been built in response to this particular data. And yet, that has come from me. And so the secret here is, if you want to wait around, like I'm 43 years old, and I've had some amazing experiences and amazing relationships with amazing women. And not one has ever taken the initiative in this direction. And talking with those women, not one man in their whole life took that initiative. So what does this mean? It means that if you want to wait around for a partner that takes the lead in this area, whether you're a man or a woman, you are going to be waiting for a very long time. You know, some of my best partners have been over 60 years old, and they have never had a conscious relationship ever that was built on these lines. The odds are not good at waiting around. So what does it mean then? It means that your odds go up significantly if you are willing to lead in this arena. So what does leading mean? It basically means you're the one who asks the questions and who takes the responsibility for noticing. What are you noticing? Resonance and energy level in your partner. Facial expressions in your partner. Tone of voice in your partner. Behavior in your partner. For example, I noticed, recently that, a couple of months ago, Jenilyn's cards to me were just kind of phenomenal creations. And, for 3 or 4 days, any card that she'd given me was, like 1/5 of the level of passion. It was kind of like she was kind of doing it through as an obligation. And I said, "What's up?" She said, "Nothing." I said, "What do you mean nothing? You used to be so excited about giving me these phenomenal cards. And now the cards are like 1/5 of what you were doing, and you're not as excited." I said, "Something's up, something's changed. Does this mean in another couple of months that you're going to be so bored you don't even want to give anything, you're bored?" So we've got to figure out what it is, because if you're bored, we can separate, we can make a change, we can do something more interesting to you, but I'm not willing to have a bored partner. And just as an aside, boredom always means that if you're bored, it means you're not giving. It means you're not giving fully. Because when you give fully from who you are, you're excited, you're present. And excitement and presence is not boring. So when you're bored, you're not giving something. Often it's the truth. Like, I'm not as much in love with my partner as I was a few months back, but I don't want to hurt her feelings, so I'm not going to tell her. So you're not giving the truth. It's boring. You have to pretend to be as in love as you were before. That's boring. Yeah. Hooray, good, happy to see you. Yeah. Your mind's thinking like, I'm not that into this. It's boring. You're not giving of yourself. Starts with giving the truth. And it gets interesting immediately. Hey, Jen, I'm not as in love with you as I was a month ago. And did you notice that? Yeah, I kind of did. Well, why didn't you tell me? Well, I don't know. Well, what's that? Are you scared of that? Yeah, I was scared because I thought maybe you don't love me anymore. Well, that sounds pretty scary. Yeah, I don't want to lose this relationship. Well, I don't either, but we got to talk about this. Well, there's no boredom in this conversation. So you give the truth. Second, you examine the truth. Third, why aren't you as in love? Well, the last 10 times I've called you, you've seemed more interested in your friends than in me. It hurts my feelings. I need you. I'm really committed here. And the message I have is you'd have been happier if I didn't call. No, that's not how I feel. No, wait a minute. That's how I feel. Your tone, what you say, like when you were happy to hear from me a month ago, you smiled, you stopped talking with your friend immediately. Now it's this. What's that about? Now often she's bored because she's not really giving. Why? Because she's scared. It's scary to give our full truth. So you've got to give that. Give the full truth. Give your partner the space to speak the full truth. That takes time. That's giving time. Challenge. Don't accept mediocrity. That's not boring. It's boring to accept mediocrity. It's not boring to say, well, you know, if you're gonna send me mediocre cards that you haven't put anything into and you're not excited to give, I don't want to receive those cards. I want something that you really want to give me. Do you want to give me anything? So this can be just wake her up. Like, she may have wound herself into a story of feeling like her cards weren't important. And then she doesn't want to put herself in and then feel like she's meaningless because her joy and excitement wasn't. So often that wakes, you know, this is just something that I've learned from a lot of experience. When someone knows that their gift really matters and you're paying attention, that's often enough to break the lock. And then they're like, oh, I really want to do this since you're paying attention. I just thought it didn't mean anything because, you know, my past boyfriend said he was bored and I just assumed you were bored by now. And, you know, I didn't want to bore you and I felt bad. It's like, no, you are not boring me. I want those cards. Oh, well, it, you know, rushes in again. It's like, oh, okay, I want to do it then. And so you tell the truth. You demand presence and joy. Demanding presence and joy is profoundly loving. And here's what I mean. Real love is beyond selfishness and is beyond personal attachment. Every woman that I've loved, I want to see her growing, excited, joyful, happy, honest, and going for who she wants to be. It's like with Jenilyn, at first I thought, you know, she needs goals and this and that. So I would ask her, like, what are your goals? They didn't bring a lot of life into her. So goals have brought a lot of life into me, so I let go of goals. Like, okay, I don't care if you have goals, but I want to see you alive today. Well, I'm just not feeling it. Well, what if we broke up? Would you be alive? Is there anyone that you can imagine you'd be more alive with? You don't accept mediocrity in your partner. It's not loving. Well, I'm terrified and I'm depressed. Great. I want to hear all about that fear. Tell me. Oh, you want to hear about that fear? Nobody wanted to hear about that fear. Well, I do. Oh, okay. Well, they get alive, you know, they grow. It's like, well, I'm afraid of this and this and this. That's a good fear. That's an accurate fear. I agree. You know, that does piss me off. That's a good fear. I understand that fear. That's right. That fear, no. That's not me at all. That's your parents. Your parents didn't like this about you. I love that about you. So that fear is erroneous. Oh, thank you for telling me. I feel more comfortable now. Great. Keep talking. What's there? So what I'm coming back to, though, is leadership. A commitment to excellence and beauty and goodness and essence and the spirit in you and your person flowing in rich ways. I'm making this video as a gift to you right now, also as a gift to myself, meaning that after going through a nice peak wave with my sweetie and talking, we came to a nice resting point where the energy was starting to go down. There was nothing I could think about between her and I that would lift it, and I could think of this video. And so I asked her if there was anything that she could do that would, be exciting. I could feel it in her face when she said it. And it's like, okay, you go do that. I'll go do my video. And the energy lifts again. So you're looking for flow. Most importantly, though, you're looking to create a culture in which this kind of conversation and response is probable. Meaning, if you've got a 10-hour job and you're coming home beat, you've already lost because you don't have the energy for this. You don't want to do this. You want to sleep. You don't want to be in that job. Get out of it. Get out of it. Live in a tent. House sit. Work 3 hours a day and pool resources and live in a van. Get out of that mind-numbing crunch that obscures the possibility to have this and be here. So I've done that very consciously, the last 25 years, the choice of business. I'm a landscape contractor. I don't do any maintenance because that's not only do I not like doing monotonous stuff, but then I'm on the hook all the time. So I work a month and then take a month off. And then at my stage in my career, when I'm working a month, it's usually being on the job site 3 hours or so and managing the crew. And in their stage of the career, they want to work 8 to 10-hour days. That's great. I need to manage them. Pick a job and work the job in a way that supports the culture that brings out the best in you. Then look for that in a partner. You can't, and be open to, like in this particular relationship with Jen, because I want the culture of traveling with her a month at a time, and I want the flow of our rich dialogue. She does, several hours a day of learning and work, and we created a small business for her that's sustainable, that's exciting for her, that keeps her growing. But my money subsidizes her not needing to work a normal job so that we can create this culture. But there's lots of, potential, just a meta conversation, that a little bit. That's not something I would do with a lot of people. But I saw her wanting this culture so much. And, she didn't have the financial resources that I have, but she would take, weeks at a time off of her work to have this culture with me volunteering. And I just saw it was too much of a strain on her financially. And so I'm able to support her, particularly in the Philippines. It's not that expensive to support her to be off of work. And then we're able to create this culture, and she's able to be herself more, and I'm, work and the sense of accomplishment gives a lot to some people. So it's kind of a watching process. Like, is she coming alive more, or is she getting bored more, etc.? In this case, she's much happier. She's much more joyful. She's able to be closer to herself in this culture than she was in the environment before, because we started off kind of relating when she was working, and we tried this, and I kind of maintained the comp, and I remember what it, and so it's an ongoing process, but it begins with a challenge and a commitment to a certain quality of relationship, and then partnering together every step of the way. Are you happier with this or with this? Well, I see you light up here, so that doesn't seem to line up with what you're saying. What do you think about that? Like, have you noticed, like I noticed this, and this, what do you think about? You're looking for integrity. Integrity between the body, integrity between the words, integrity between the emotions, integrity with the actions. You're looking for integrity, an integrity that's moving the self forward. So I look for that very, very consciously. And just going to take a sip here. So there's other things that come in. Anger can be a friend. Impatience can be a friend. Desire can be a friend. Willingness, experimentation can be a friend. What do I mean? You know, a few weeks ago, I was feeling, you know, I'd eaten too much for a few days. I felt scared inside. I felt uncertain. This is actually one of the challenges that comes up when you have a lot of freedom. You know, when money is not driving you and you create a lifestyle where it's not, then there's this sense of like, what do I do and why? You know, when you're desperate and you need to buy stuff to survive, it creates a self-evident purpose. I got to do this and I got to do that. And you don't have to think, what is my purpose? When you don't need anything and you've got lots of things to do, what are you going to do and why? It challenges, and you can get lazy. So anyway, I was watching both of us in this state, and I just got fed up. You know, I said, I'm angry. You've got this wonderful opportunity, this relationship is provided, and you're just bored and uncertain and you're not happy. So either we're going to get happy and, you know, I want to know what you need and what's going to go on so that you're going to come alive and grow, or we're going to, you know, separate. I'm not going to just participate in being bored and watching you get bored. So what are you going to do? And I kind of gave her impatience and oomph, dissatisfaction. And it, you know, it sparked something out. More importantly for me, I'm like, yeah, Dane, what's going on here? So I just immediately went and wrote down a list of the most, you know, the 10 most exciting goals that I could do, that I could feel excitement immediately. And I began working on them instantly. And I said, okay, Jen, I'm off doing this. I want to know what you're working on when I'm done with this. So you figure that out on your own. I'm off. That's another thing that breaks the spell. You know, when someone realizes you're not going to co-opt and support them to do absolutely nothing and be miserable about doing nothing, and that if necessary, you'll go and have joy and fun with someone else because you can't force someone. And here's how I'm going to do it. You're modeling it. You're showing dissatisfaction. You're communicating. It's not okay. This is not what an ideal relationship is. It's not okay. I don't want it. I'm not putting up with it myself. And here's what I'm going to do. And I suggest you do the same. And I want you to be happy. Get a move on. Do something that makes you happy. Bye for now. It breaks the spell. So by the end of the day, we were both highly charged. She had a list of things to do. She'd done some great things that day. I'd done some great, and we were on a roll again. What I'm saying is, if the anger, you know, if the anger is constructive and loving, loving. Break down all the numb amnesia and stuff and let the self come out. It's a powerful force. It's cutting through numbness. If the anger is attacking the self, like someone is in their joy and you're spiking the joy, like someone brings you this exciting thing and you're like, well, get out of my way, I'm in a hurry. Well, that's anger that's attacking life. Anger that's like, you are not a bored, miserable, numb, unsatisfied, greedy person. So cut it out. You figure out how to get out of that, because that's not you. And that's not the you I want to be around. And if there's any pain that's really there, let's get on that and heal that together. I want to know what it is. If I'm doing something to hurt you, tell me immediately. But I'm not going to settle for mediocrity in you. You are a beautiful, loving, kind, amazing person. And I'm not going to accept this self-malaise and hatred. And that's all good advice to me, so I'm not going to do it in me either. And I'm going to get on with this. That's great. And you look at the impact. If it works, it's healthy. Someone may say, well, this other person lets me laze around and do absolutely nothing and be miserable for weeks on end and gives me drugs and da-da-da-da-da. Fine, off you go. But I'm not going to support you to be at your worst. I'm going to help you be at your best. I'm going to see who you are. I'm going to care about you. I'm going to care about myself. I'm going to care about us. And our relationship is going to be about bringing out the best in us. Or we're going to end. Now, this is one of the reasons that I don't make lifetime commitments. My commitment is that as long as we're growing and bringing out the best in one another and working hard to reveal and bring our spirit into the world, and that we have any clue how to do that and how to do it better, I will be absolutely committed to you. As soon as we're not doing that, I will be absolutely committed to seeing what's going on. And if we don't know what's going on, we can't figure out what's going on, and we're not bringing out the best in one another, I'm absolutely committed to disengaging and sorting and experimenting around with the goal of bringing out the best in one another. And that's what I'm committed to, bringing out the best in one another. I'm very, very, very happy if I see someone genuinely lift. If they start growing more as they separate from me, we need to separate. But if I learn what I'm doing to not separate, what I'm learning to repress them, it's an ecology. A relationship is an ecology. We're both each other's soil. And usually if the soil is good, the plant will grow. So I take responsibility that I want to be someone that can bring out the best. Now, if I can't, meaning like I'm really insecure at this moment and I need lots of tight holding and bonding, and they're really wanting to go off and do all these things, but they can't because of my need, I might separate and say, okay, go do all those things, wish you well, and I need to find someone I can be needy with, because I need security right now for me to be at my best. So I can't be what's good for you right now, and I'm sorry, I get it. It's not personal. I'd love to be what's ideal for you, but where I'm at, I'm not. Or I see exactly what you need and want, and I can't be that, or you can't be that for me. But it's kind, and it's part of this conscious culture, and it's part of evoking the best in one another. And this is where love needs to be bigger than attachment. Because if the attachment of fear and need and greed and lust is too strong, there's no interest in whether it's bringing out the best in the partner or not. It's like, I don't care whether your spirit is coming alive. I want to fuck you. I want to fuck you again. And you're getting tired, whatever. I don't care. I need that. That's not love. It can be love if that's what brings out the best in someone at that time. It's not love if it doesn't. So if I need that, love is saying, okay, let's give us some space, or let's disengage. It's my job to find someone who, when I meet my needs, that brings out the best in them at this time. And if that diverges and we can't honestly bring it together authentically and mutually, that's a great separation. So it brings in this periodic questioning. Is this the best for us? So those questions, asking those questions, asking them of your partner, watching, paying attention, and looking at trends. Is your partner giving as much as they gave 6 months ago? Is your partner loving as much as they loved 6 months ago? Is your partner adoring you as much as she adored you or he adored you 6 months ago? Is your partner growing as much? Well, if it's going down, why? And what can you do about it? Together, in candid observation, let's have a conversation, because I'm noticing you're giving less, you're less enthusiastic, you're less happy to see me, and you're growing less. So if this trend continues in another 18 months, this will be absolutely hopeless. I don't want to wait until it's hopeless. So can we turn it around now? And how would we do it? Or should we separate if you're too bored to want to do it? Because if your partner isn't interested, you can't control them or turn them around. I mean, you can try and threaten them or whatever, but that's not really respectful. And you can't sustainably do that anyway. They can leave, so let them, do it gracefully, out of love for yourself and one another. And this also means the courage and the willingness and the commitment to do the hard work to find another partner if you believe that your partner is holding you back. If you believe that, it's important to talk about it, but also give your partner a chance. Don't say, he or she isn't really the best for me. They're too weak to hear it. I'm disgusted by their weakness, so I'm just going to kind of secretly go off, and they ought to get it, but they probably don't, and it's their fault. No. You're not bringing out the best in me right now. I know that hurts. Let me be with you in that hurt. Here is exactly what you're doing that isn't bringing out the best in me. This is what I'd like to be happening. You're a free person. You don't have to do any of this. Is there any way you can do any of that with real joy? Why aren't you doing it? Did you know? I told you, engage. And the message is always the same. I'm not going to accept mediocrity in myself, in you, or in us. Secondly, the love is the biggest thing. The willingness to let go. If excellence and growth and love and joy is not going, you don't make a fortune buying a stock and watching it go all the way into the dirt till it's useless, and then buying another stock and doing the same. You make a fortune by investing in something that you consciously take responsibility to grow, and you grow it by work, by consciousness, by love, by active culture, protocols, and time. There is no free lunch. It takes the care and the love, day by day by day. So that's it.